After watching the news and paying attention to world events, you've decided to do something. You've started to look at prepping and survival websites, forums, and channels, trying to cover all emergencies. Suddenly, your feed is filled with years worth of knowledge, gear reviews, and panic-inducing analysis of events and more. It gets very overwhelming, and you decide that you'll take your chances because it all seems so crazy. Stop. Before you go, I know 100% it sounds strange. Your soft intro into this world was probably doomsday preppers. The reality is that those people were selected for that show precisely because they are a spectacle. Not to undermine the community, but because spectacle makes money. Being prepared doesn't mean getting into a bunker, always dressing in camo, or ineffectively wearing gas masks. Here's 12 small things you can do and expand on the more you learn. They're simple and actionable tasks that not only can have you ready for things like job loss or local emergencies, but larger ones too. Being a prepper doesn't mean suddenly you have the urge to reject the world immediately and live in a bunker. You can absolutely be on top of the news and still enjoy the quote-unquote normal things that society likes too. You need to keep a healthy balance of knowing what's culturally relevant in order to blend in or create subtle future changes in your locale. Eventually, you can be inundated with the news of the world, and instead of feeling a sense of dread and loss of control, you begin to take control of that emotion and then say to yourself, great, now how can we prepare against that kind of scenario? The last thing you'd want to be if you're prepping for any kind of disaster is a pariah. If your tank is below half full, get gas now. We've seen prices spike literally overnight, and there's no telling what tomorrow can bring. There's also the possibility that gas stops being delivered, pumps don't work, whatever. Pick your favorite scenario or reason to do it. It doesn't change the simple fact that your tank shouldn't be less than half empty at all times. Because of our busy lifestyles, I know we can all fall behind on that, but make it a habit to stay topped up more often than not. Prep for emergencies, but prepare for daily life as well. Excellent. You have a tourniquet, a proper cat or soft tea. Not an Amazon 3 for $20 special. That's great, but your kid is crying about a headache and you're at Disneyland and Tylenol packets are sold out at those goofy souvenir shops. It's great to think about big emergencies and such, but don't forget the vast majority of your time will be spent putting out the little relatable fires. Keep your basic necessities stocked up, in your house or on you, whatever applies. Prep for your pets too. Cat litter, training pads, doggy treats, whatever you may need in addition to food and water that you've set aside for them as well. This is important because local water can become contaminated in events like earthquakes and such, and relying from water in the tap isn't just gross under normal circumstances, it can have severe medical consequences in the event of an emergency. Diversify your investments. No matter how small you think your nest egg is, the less tech you have around you, the more your investments will be physical items, real estate and tangible goods. Yes, I'm also talking about bullion, but get creative. In the third world, if you show up with coins, the unsavory people will notice right away that you might be wealthy. The reasoning is that if you can afford to have so-called useless gold and silver rounds and bars versus someone of more modest means buying gold and silver jewelry, you're going to be a very big target. I know it sounds odd, but you just have to look at the Asian sphere and it will begin to make sense. This also applies to areas like Latin America as well. The average person on the street isn't going to be walking around with a gold coin but might have a gold ring. And while you might not be wearing that ring in your hand, what you pull out of your pocket matters just as much depending on who might be watching you. In fact, if you can make your jewelry look fake, even better. Spare batteries are life or death, figuratively and literally. The fact of the matter is that some life-saving equipment can be run off batteries. It also helps keep the lights on. As I've mentioned repeatedly in videos, keeping your cell phone charged and powered on in cases of emergencies is crucial. Calls and texts you send out may mean the difference between life or death. The modern cell phone is capable of sending out SOS signals as well as functioning as a tracking device if desired. Prepping can be mentally preparing for outcomes. Some people won't make it outside of the modern world's medicine and supply chain that enables it. This is a reality. Whether it's because of medical issues or attitudes that lead into conflict, there will be a lot of people who won't make it in a worst case scenario, and that's something you have to meditate on. Are you or a family member an elderly individual with issues? Do you have a brother or sister who's a hothead who gets to fight on the regular? Is that guy actually you? I don't have to explain the medical scenarios because I feel it's self-evident, but when it comes to attitude, for anyone who thinks they're going to just take what they need, all it takes is to run into the wrong person or clan that decided you're a threat to their existence. Life in the third world is closer to human default settings than you think. It would probably surprise some people that in certain areas of the world, the machete and pistol are still the symbols of justice, not a scale. Physical fitness isn't a young person's game, it's for every person. You may have broken down 5 miles from the nearest gas station. You may need to pull a wounded friend out of a ravine. You may need to hobble down a mountain to get help. Physical fitness is absolutely key to being able to withstand damage and illness. Even with the respiratory virus that had us all locked down and had weird rules almost 3 years later, it is absolutely your duty to be able to at least knock out a 20-minute walk a day no matter what. For most people, that's roughly a mile. It would absolutely help and lead you down a journey where you can then transform into the strongest version of yourself. This is very important for anyone that has become used to the routines of being an office worker. Snap yourself out of that. It's slowly killing you. Take it one step at a time, 1% better each day. That's all it takes. Make friends, but also realize you can't make friends with everyone, and that's okay. Worldviews that mostly align are key. We've seen crazy things, crazy beliefs. It seems that even saying the biological obvious gets you canceled based on today's culture. But absolutely having like-minded and trustworthy people are necessary. You want to be sure you have a solid teammate and not someone that's going to plug you in the back like a dishonorable POS. Surviving low-tech isn't new. In fact, join reenactment groups. There are lots of skills that translate into prepping. Whether that's a pioneer group, a colonial group, or the SCA, you can learn lots of things like blacksmithing, food preservation, livestock raising, and farming. Who knows how far back the tech table we can get knocked back. We all know what a fridge is, but only a few of us know how to repair it. Of those around, even fewer know how to make the parts for it, and even less can physically acquire the necessary materials to make those parts. Even then, some of those materials are only available with the proper technological means of creating them through advanced modern chemistry, computers, and manufacturing processes. If we distill that concept down to everything we take for granted in the modern era, eventually modern humans are going to be dehydrating food and making adobe bricks while figuring out how to create and store freon while grinding a spearhead from an old stop sign. This applies to weapons too, guys. Getting back to fitness, you are physically capable of doing more than you think. Push that final rep, run that additional lap, or ruck that extra mile on the trail. Every day you improve is a day you not only become useful if physical tasks are required, if nothing happens, you live a long and relatively healthy life compared to a person who became obese and sat around all day. I've worked in geriatric settings before. I've watched 90-something-year-old men and women take walks and play tennis, while 60 and 70-something-year-old people got around on a scooter at 250 plus pounds. They were all lovely people, but the ones that were worse off were usually in chronic pain and never neglected letting me know so that they could get their anti-inflammatory medication. Prepping looks almost like building a cohesive little community if you want life to be more than just subsistence. You can survive on gruel, alone on the woods, and then die a pretty painful death when you can't take care of yourself. For some, that seems like a fair trade to get away from the modern world. Others may want their children to grow up in a world full of lessons, beautiful art, a culture of strength, and to understand struggle. Humans are resilient survivors. A 2005 study from Rutgers University theorized that the pre-1492 native populations of the Americas are the descendants of only 70 individuals who crossed the land bridge between Asia and North America. While that doesn't sound particularly nice for lots of reasons,
life finds a way.
Start slow, don't feel pressured into springing for the big stuff, storing 500 gallons of water for a tilapia farm tank. What can realistically be will be. You have to prepare at the most basic levels first. Crawl, walk, run. Until the next video, be good, stay safe, and have a good one.
We're gonna be alright, just right. I know that we can make it, reach out and take it. fine. I know that we can make it. Reach out and take it, girl, we're gonna be alright.